Alrighty, so for everyone who's here attending the webinar, welcome to today's webinar. We just take 1 or 2 more minutes just to set up things correctly, but otherwise we'll be starting in the next 2 minutes. So around 7:03, we'll start. If you have any questions, we have a chat box below, or we have a Q&A section where you can post your questions and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. I know that some questions were prepared and submitted ahead of time, so we'll get to those as well at the end of the presentation. But, to keep this engaging, if any questions are asked, we'll answer those first, and then we'll go over to the questions that were submitted ahead of time. One of the questions that a lot of people ask is whether or not this is being recorded. Yes, this presentation is being recorded, and we usually post the recording on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to access our YouTube channel, if you'd like to see some of the presentations we've had in the past, we've been doing these webinars for about 4 years now. So we do have content for those who are looking to learn more about buying real estate, all the different topics regarding real estate investing. We do have webinars for that as well. So our YouTube channel is Joseline Nicholas. So if you go to YouTube, type in Joseline Nicholas, my name should come up, and then you'll see all the videos that we've been making for the last 4 years. Some people also would like a copy of the slides. Please let us know, and we'll be happy to share those with you. On another note, sometimes when we do webinars like this, people have very personal questions. They would like to meet with Farhan, or they'd like to meet with myself. If that is you, please let us know. We'll put a link in the chat box where you can go and book a one-on-one consultation where Farhan can meet with you, or I can meet with you and look at your financial situation, because today we're talking about mortgages, and see how we can help you achieve your goals. Anyway, so as I said, for those who are just joining, welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about buying a home, especially being a first-time home buyer in this market. There's a lot of variables that are moving, a lot of uncertainty, and that is why we're here. We're here to answer those questions. We're here to be of help as much as we can. So if you have those questions, submit them, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Okay, so I guess we are ready to get started, right? Farhan, we're good?
We are, yes.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so for those who don't know me, my name is Joseline Nicholas, and I am a real estate agent, also a real estate investor. I'm working mostly in Southern Ontario, so Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, sometimes Hamilton as well. Farhan is a real estate investor as well, and a mortgage broker. And I will not introduce you very much because I know you're working in all kinds of markets, some of which I can't speak about. You're in Northern Ontario, you're in Southern Ontario. So I'll let you introduce yourself. But I'm very excited to be here today because every time we hold a webinar like this, there's always something new that I learn. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback. That's why we've been doing these webinars for the last 4 years. We're still doing it because we get a lot of feedback from buyers, sellers, investors who just appreciate being here and learning together and grow together. So welcome to this webinar today. And I'm very excited to hear more about what you're about to share today. And hopefully we can help some people advance and reach their goals this year.
Thank you so much, Joseline. Really, really appreciated your kind words and your introduction. Known Joseline for a while now. It seems like I have known her for a lot longer than I actually do. But she has become a dear friend, a younger sister, and so much more over the years since I have known her. And I respect you so, so much for what you do, not only for people around you, but all of your clients and all the families you've been helping for years with these webinars and providing them education about what's actually happening in the real estate market, and not sugarcoating the things and giving them a real picture. A bit about myself. I've been involved in mortgages for a fairly long time, more than 16 years now, on and off. Most for the past 10 years, I've been working as a mortgage broker, and I've helped a lot of people get into homes. So the goal today is to give more information about what's happening in the mortgages today. What is it going to take for a first-time home buyer to get into a property? And what are some of the challenges the first-time home buyers are facing? So that's going to be the main theme of this webinar today. Again, we will be going over the questions towards the end of webinars. And if we couldn't get to your questions, please email us or send us a message, and we'll be happy to set up a one-on-one consultation to go over your specific questions. And Joseline, is there anything you want to start off with?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that I'm excited to hear what you're about to share. I know you have a presentation. I did take a look at it. So maybe I'll let you start there and then we'll have a discussion as we go.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share the presentation, and hopefully we can give some information on what's happening with the market at the moment. Okay. Jocelyn, can you see the presentation now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, so a bit of a background on what's happening with the market at the moment is, compared to the end of 2023, we have seen interest rates come down a little bit. 5-year mortgages rates are in the high fours at the moment, 4.85 to 4.99, somewhere there. Um, what we've been seeing at the moment is a lot of home buyers, they are questioning, is it the right time to buy a property, or should they wait till the interest rates go down to step into the real estate market? And for every person, the answer is different. Obviously, there are some people who believe that they want to have a really low mortgage payment in order to get into the housing market. But it also is true that as soon as the interest rates start sliding downward, the market prices will go up. So a property you can get into today for, let's say, $600,000, you won't be able to get into it when the interest rate goes down. And that's what we've been dealing mostly with. We are recommending our clients to go with low in s- low mortgage terms. Like, instead of going for 5-year mortgage, go for 1 or 2 or 3-year mortgage. This way, by the time the low rate comes, you have the ability to take advantage of that. Um, and in the meantime, find the right property for yourself. The big saying which always goes is, if you find the right property and you can afford it with these high rates, once the rate goes down, you would be very easily able to afford that property. What we have seen a couple of days ago with CPI numbers, the numbers have come lower than expected. And today, Bank of in US, they held the interest rate. So what is expected during this summer and possibly later this year is we will see some drops from Bank of Canada in terms of interest rate. That the consensus, that's what we've been expecting. And we have already seen that the real estate activity has started picking up. A property which was worth, let's say, $550,000 in October, November of last year, it's already selling closer to $600,000. Is that's what you're finding, Jocelyn, in the real estate market too, that deals are getting harder to come compared to what they were towards the end of last year?
You're right. And we're also seeing, like, some of that multiple offer situation. Last year, let's say December, November, even going back to the summer of last year, we weren't
Mhm.
seeing, 2, 3 offers on the table. But now this year, we've had situations where we have more than 5 offers. So that is something new that we're seeing. And it definitely is an indication that people are coming back to the market and that people are feeling more confident to make that decision and to buy the property and then see where rates go.
Yeah. Another criteria, Jocelyn, which we've been seeing a lot, we did a lot of finances for the small builders, and for the past year and a half, they have stopped building. So it's just because of the high cost of construction and the sale price really not being there, a lot of builders stop building home. So what, and we have new immigrants coming into Canada at a record number. So what we are anticipating is, in next 2 to 3 years, we are going to see another um, real hike in the prices of real estate, just because there is not enough inventory getting built and we are adding more and more people into this country. As a result, we're going to see an increase in real estate prices. next to impossible to know what the exact numbers would be, but they won't be at the prices where they are at the moment.
Yeah,
So again, if you do have the ability to get into housing, please do get into it sooner than later. As the inventory, there is still quite a bit of inventory available on the marketplace, but as the year goes by, what we believe is the inventory is going to become less and less, and you would have to pay a lot higher for a property.
absolutely.
What are you seeing as an inventory level, Jocelyn, in the Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge marketplace?
So right now, I would say that compared to last year, we definitely have fewer homes on market. However, if we were to compare to like 2016 and 2017, it's probably not unusual. Like what we have is still a lot less, but certainly it's I also think it depends on the market. Like there's a certain segment of markets that we're looking at. For example, if you're looking for a student rental right now, it's hard and it's competitive, and that's because a lot of student rentals are in high demand right now, and a lot of parents are buying. But if you look at rural homes, there's a lot of good quality homes on market right now. So I think that it's one of those things that we have to see what exactly you're looking for and then try to find it, because different things are happening in different markets.
Absolutely. And for that, Jocelyn, I just have a question. Is that more due to as the COVID hit, a lot of people moved into rural properties and now they're trying to sell them or walk away from them as they are going back to their jobs? And same thing with students, what at least we saw in Guelph was during COVID, a lot of those homes, which were student high rental homes, got converted back into single family homes and got
Yeah.
sold, and there is low inventory for that. Is that's the main reason, or you're seeing any other trends for it as well?
You know what? I think that is probably some of the reasons. And with student rentals too, we're seeing that universities have increased their intake by at least 20%,
Mm-hmm.
compared to pre-pandemic levels. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, I think the University of Guelph is taking 5,000 more students this year, than
Mm-hmm.
they did, before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So those students need a place to live. So that's probably why we're seeing a lot of activity. And you're right with rural homes, like, most people, especially because people were working from home, they wanted a lifestyle property. And now people are going back to the office and they don't have time to spend in the lovely backyard or the rural home they wanted. Maybe they don't even have time to do the maintenance. So we're
Mm-hmm.
definitely seeing a lot of those rural homes come to market. A lot of incredible deals.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. That's interesting because me and you, both of us live in a rural property.
I've
And
been
we are
tempted to move multiple times this month.
I, so
Oh,
I do want to quickly go over another aspect of it is when you buy a property, that is, you basically marry the property most of the time. You live with the property for a long period. But interest rate is temporary. Most of the time when you take a mortgage, it is, in most cases, it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And even if it is a 5 year mortgage, a lot of people do end up breaking the mortgage, or they end up taking advantage of blended mortgage as they continue with their mortgage journey. And the main thing which a lot of people don't realize is that the fact that, yes, the interest rates are high right now, but they're not gonna be high for a long, long period. This increase which we have seen, it is really to temper the inflation, and inflation, as per the past few quarters, is coming down. So that is good news. And that is a relief for homeowners who have a higher interest rate. They're not going to stay at this level. If you can choose the right property, if you can get something which is undervalued and get into it, my recommendation always to those people is that don't worry too much about the interest rate. It is not going to stay at that level for a long term. Um, Jocelyn, you have had experience with that, right? Like you have moved few times since we have started working together. What has been your experience with the interest rate and mortgage terms?
because we've moved so much,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could say the short-term rate, like the short-term mortgages have probably been a good option for us. But we've also had terms where, for example, like the properties that we bought when, rates were 2% and 1%, we definitely cannot touch those. So those are still going.
Mm-hmm.
But I like what you said about people having to think long term, right? Because a lot of people are thinking, a year from now, months from now, what's going to happen? But if you look at a property that you're going to live in for, let's say, 10 years, right now is probably one of the best buying opportunities that we will have in the next 10 years, right? And I know that we have fluctuations, but what we've seen statistically and looking at data is that even though prices fluctuate on a long-term basis, the trend is upwards. So it's definitely a good buying opportunity. And of course, as you said, rates will come and go, but the property that you live in is there to stay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do want to give a bit of a comparison what the maximum mortgage we are qualifying people at. So most of the people who are attending this webinar, they get an idea if they are first-time home buyer, what they would be able to do. We are seeing for 3-year rates to be in low fives, 5 years to be in high fours. If you take a look into it, there is not much difference between 3-year term on a mortgage versus 5-year term on a mortgage. And $100,000 income at 10% down payment is currently qualifying for about $425,000 of financing. So that means your purchase price could be just about $470,000 a year. Now that obviously depends on the property you're buying, how much are the property taxes, how much are the condo fees. So please consult a financer or mortgage broker to take a look into your affordability. Now, if you do make a higher down payment, you do have the ability to get a larger mortgage, and you can again see 3-year versus 5-year term difference on it. Again, each situation is going to be unique, but this kind of gives you an idea on how much you can qualify for based on your income. There is obviously more ways for the first-time home buyers to get into the home, and I do want to touch upon that. Jocelyn, what have you been seeing, especially with the initiative with 3 units allowed on each property? Are you seeing a lot of people taking advantage of basement apartments or accessory dwelling units recently?
Absolutely. And I'm seeing it more than we did actually before rates went up. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because people are realizing that's actually one of the easy ways of having a mortgage helper, so to speak. So I'm seeing a lot more basement apartments. In the last 24 hours alone, I spoke to at least 3, 4 clients who are looking to do a basement apartment in their property. That is incredible. Like in 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to 4 people who are looking to do this, and most of them are asking for information, for connections. I also
Mm-hmm.
have clients who are doing accessory dwelling units like ADUs. So I was
Mm-hmm.
speaking to one of my clients today who is looking to
Mm-hmm.
do an ADU in the
Mm-hmm.
Mississauga area. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just so interesting. And also like, this is also something that, maybe couldn't have been done, especially with ADUs in the last 5 years because it's a new thing that's coming to Ontario. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of our clients take advantage of that for sure.
And same thing here. I was speaking to a client of mine yesterday, and he is in Hamilton. He built a legal basement apartment, and he also put an ADU in his backyard. He did take out $200,000 to do both of those units. And the payment, his mortgage payment has gone up by $1,000, but he's collecting close to $3,200 in
Um,
additional rental income.
yeah,
Um, so especially for those homeowners who do have some equity in their home, that is a great way to decrease your mortgage payment if you were to add, depending on your situation, 1 or 2 units to your
yeah,
property and take advantage of that.
absolutely.
And that's what I want to touch upon. Like a lot of time, first time home buyers, they get very worried that how they're going to afford a $4,000 or $3,500 a month mortgage payment. And to be honest with you, yes, it is very scary if you were to take a look into those numbers. But if you do have, let's say, $1,500 rent coming in from the basement, your monthly mortgage payment goes down to about $2,000 a month, which is less than what you pay for rent. Plus, you're building equity inside your home. And over time, your home is going to experience appreciation. So you are going to make money not only from paying down your mortgage, but you're also going to make money from the appreciation. So again, if you that's where a critical difference comes in, and that's where you need to have a professional realtor with you who have those experience in dealing with those properties, who can guide you through which property would accommodate something like that and which property would not accommodate something like that. Um, Also another option which is room rental, especially in towns like Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge. um, we have a lot of families who rent out their primary bedroom in their house to a student and collect $1,100 rent from it. Now obviously it's not for everyone, but if you are a young couple and you don't have kids and you're looking to get into a home, that is a great way of making extra income from it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because I've actually had clients who even like, because you're talking about a young couple here, and I just
Mm,
thought of an idea. I've had a client who they finished their basement, and her and her significant other moved into the basement and rented out the home, and the
mm.
upstairs unit is able to cover all expenses, and they live in the basement for free.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we have seen examples of that. I have a client who I did the financing 4.5 years ago, and they paid off their mortgage because they were so frugal. Same thing, Jocelyn, they did. They moved into the basement. They rented the upper portion of their home, and every penny, extra penny they got, just throwed it toward their mortgage. And yes, I completely understand the frustration of younger people that the housing is really expensive and it is very, very difficult to get into housing. But if you could get into it and you could work harder for 2, 3, 4 years, either you can pay off a very big chunk of your mortgage or you can get closer to paying off your mortgage. Where the problem occurs, especially with homeowners, is as soon as they buy a home, they want to buy new cars, they want to buy new furniture, they want to spend a lot of money on buying new appliances. And that's something I recommend completely against. That is not a good strategy if your goal is to pay off your mortgage and save money. Um, y- Getting into the home is not a ticket for you to do all of those things. In fact, that is the time you need to show the most amount of frugality and live under your means so you can save as much money as possible to pay off your mortgage sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Jocelyn, I know for years you guys lived in a property where you had a tenant in the basement. How has been that experience, and how difficult was it, especially with kids and family, to have a tenant in the basement?
To be honest, it was not a problem at all. And we've done it on, actually, I'm thinking back for the last 10 years,
Mhm,
9 out of those, maybe even 8 out of those, we had tenants in the basement. It wasn't a problem at all. And part of the reason being that you set expectations. Of course, we have a young family, so we have to make sure that it's safe. We vet the person. I think that's the key, to make sure that you're screening and you know who's coming, in your basement apartment. And there's ways to set it up such that you never even see them, right? So if somebody
mhm,
is worried about privacy, about, having people around all the time, you set expectations, you screen properly, and it was never a problem. Never, ever,
mhm,
ever. So I think that that was good too. And one of the reasons why for me it wasn't a problem, even now I would still do it, is because we don't use the basement for anything. We go in the basement like once every 6 months just to check on a toy that we thought was elsewhere. You know what I mean? So I was like, at that time, in a phase where we're still building, might as well rent it out and collect extra income monthly.
and makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
With so many people coming into Canada, housing is obviously a big challenge. And by providing a basement apartment, you are helping someone either to save money for a home ownership
that's true.
or provide decent living. So
Mm.
it's a great idea if you could possibly look into a property where you could have a basement apartment. It can provide a huge benefit towards your monthly mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Um, I also want to talk about some not so orthodox ideas about people who are not able to get into housing, how they can get into housing. And one of the major thing which we have seen is if they can partner up with either a family member uh, or a loved one and get into a house together. We have recently seen a lot more where two couples get together and there is legal agreements and everything, and they buy a home together. One lives in the basement and one lives upstairs, and they divide the mortgage and the expenses accordingly. We have recently seen, especially with people with long-term employments, that they are getting loans from their employers uh, for the down payment towards a home as well. So we have seen a bunch of those cases as well. Again, I don't know what everyone's situation is, but there are options available. It's just what I find is a lot of people just don't explore those options and they just give up on the home ownership, especially for first-time home buyers. They think they will never be able to buy a home and they don't pursue that option. But that's not the reality. As soon as you set a goal of buying a home and start putting your planning in place, generally within 1 to 2 years, you have the ability to buy a home, and some of them even sooner than that. Jocelyn, I know you work with a lot of first-time home buyers. What is some of the creative ways you have seen that the first-time home buyers have used the resources to buy a home?
So yeah, you're right. One of the ways for sure is being able to co-sign with a family member. We're seeing a lot of that. We actually are seeing people coming together who are not even really like friends, right? I've had a few friends who bought properties together. Months ago, we even talked about a program that's come up that allows two families that don't know each other to buy a property together legally and possibly have multiple units in the property and they can both occupy it. So there's been multiple ways to get around the purchase price being so high and people not being able to afford it. But co-signing is definitely one big one. Loans from family members and loans from employers, like you said. I think that people don't realize how much you can do once you start working on it. If you're determined, you can definitely do it.
Absolutely. And just to share on that, I had a couple in my office a couple of weeks ago. They were planning to get married and spend a lot of money on their wedding. And I had a chat with them. I'm like, instead of having a big wedding and asking your relatives to give you gifts on your wedding, why don't you have a discussion with your family members that we don't want to do a big wedding, we want to do a very small wedding, very inexpensive wedding, and use that money towards home ownership. And
Yeah.
let's say 5 years from today, when you actually have that large amount of money, if then feel free to have a big wedding, right? That's not an issue. And that's exactly what this couple has chosen to do. They decided to have a very private small wedding, and instead of inviting hundreds of people towards their wedding, they sent everyone to donate. They created a campaign online and they asked the uh, people who are going to come to their wedding to donate $100 per person instead of giving them a gift towards the wedding, and which they're
Yeah.
going to use towards the home ownership. So
Yeah,
as long as you can become creative, there are solutions.
absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
Another trend which we've been seeing recently from the mortgage side is a lot of people building ADUs, right? And we have talked about it, but one of the thing we have seen is especially with multi-generational home, where you decide to build a small property of your parents' home in the back. Um, it's relatively cheap to do it compared to buying a home, and it provides a great way to connect back with your family, with your community, and create space. So again, if that is a possibility, you're a first-time home buyer who is not able to buy a home, but you have a parent who has a bigger property, possibly having a discussion with them about building a secondary dwelling in the backyard could be a great way to possibly get into home ownership. Um, Again, there is a discussion which you have to have with them about titles, all of those things. But just to give you an idea, the house I live in at the moment, the owner previous to me, It was their mother's home, and they decided to build a much larger home and build a section for their mother. And that's how, and divided the home ownership in 50-50. That's how those guys got into home ownership. So there is obviously solution which can be built around it, depending on what your financial situation is and so on. But that can be done. And we will be seeing more and more multi-generational homes getting built by builders, by people themselves in the next few years as there is more constraint coming on where the building is going. Jocelyn, have you seen any examples of that recently?
Yeah, everywhere. We have clients, like you said, I had a client who sold their house and their mother sold their house and they bought two semis together, right? So then the mother can live on the one side and they can live on the other side and they can take care of their mother. So, I guess I think that I don't know if it's COVID or what, but something is bringing families together again, and we're definitely seeing a lot of, and also cost, right? Like instead of like you said, instead of going out there and finding another home, living together provides that environment where people can save on costs.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's really the end of my presentation. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send us your questions and would love to cover it. Anything you wanna bridge into, Jocelyn?
So I have some questions here that people are asking, and we'll start with those, and then we'll go into the questions that were submitted ahead of time. The first question is there any program for newcomers with low income?
Um, yes and no. Again, there is a newcomer which I've been working with for the past couple of weeks, and they are doing a partnership with another family to get into a home. So depending on your situation, definitely there is ways which we can do it. It really depends on how much your income is and how much savings you have brought. Just to give you an idea, the couple which I was working with for the past few months and they were able to get into the home, they had sold the home in their country and they had come here with significant savings, and they did not wanted to put their savings in the bank. Instead, they wanted to get into a home. However, they did not have any income. Both of the husband and wife, they were going back to school to study. So they end up doing a partnership with one of the investors and get into the home that way.
Yeah, lots of creative ways of doing things for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's another question here that says, what is the minimum down payment?
So up to $500,000, you can do 5% down payment. Okay, so that's $25,000. Now, every dollar over $500,000, you have to do 10% down payment. So let's say if your purchase price was $750,000, altogether you would need to have a total of $50,000 down payment, 25,000 for the first 500 and 25,000 for the next $250,000 block. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but there are programs. If you have very high income and you have low down payments, there are still programs which allow you to use your lines of credit or your RRSP lines of credit towards the down payments, etc. So if you are in that one of those unique situation, please give us a call and we'll love to help you out with that.
Yeah. Can someone who lives in the US co-sign for somebody who's here?
Yes, they can, depending
Okay,
on how strong their credit is, the down payment, but we have in the past have had success with that.
okay. Somebody's asking, what does an ADU stand for?
Accessory dwelling unit. So there is different terminology which is used for it. It's basically a backyard home which you build.
Mhm.
Again, depending on the property, it could be a side yard unit. It could also come. We have a client who has a very, very deep lot, and their property is built way back, and they're doing one on the front. It can be done
Wow,
anywhere on your property.
yeah.
Um, some municipality refers them to as accessory residential dwelling units, but the
Mhm.
simplest way of picturing it is a small, tiny backyard home, um, which serves as a secondary dwelling.
Absolutely. And I think in Toronto they call them like laneway houses or something like that.
Yeah, there is multiple names for them.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna dive into the questions that were submitted ahead of time. And one of the questions that I have here is, as a first-time home buyer in Canada, I'm facing the dilemma to buy or to wait for rates to fall. What is one advice you can give me?
If you have the ability to buy, please. And again, the main reason behind is as soon as the interest rate's gonna go down, there is so many people we have in our book who are just waiting for the interest rate to drop so they can get into the home. The competition is gonna go up significantly.
Yeah,
Um, I hate saying it, but that's just the reality of it. Um, Most of the people they make decision when it is comfortable and safe, but that decision costs you a lot more than making a decision which is uncomfortable. Yes,
yeah,
buying a home right now with a higher rate is uncomfortable, but you're gonna pay much less price versus when the rate go up. And at the end of the day, what you pay for the home, your mortgage is gonna be based on that. Yes, let's say 2 years from today, the rates are low and you buy a home, but if your mortgage is significantly higher, you're gonna pay a lot more money for a lot longer period to pay for the same mortgage and same house.
so the second question is very similar to the first one. And it says, I'm looking to buy my first home, but not sure what to do. The prices have fallen, but rates are still high. It's scary. What should I do?
I agree. It is very scary, right?
Yeah,
And that's what home ownership is. But that's where you need to sit down with a professional. You need to go visit a realtor like Jocelyn and speak to a mortgage broker or your bank or someone who is in finance field just to understand what your situation is. Um, Reality is this that you very well could be your payment could be less than what you're paying for rent.
yeah,
It could also be that you could get into a property where there is a basement apartment or so on, where your monthly payment could become less. I had a client I'm yesterday in my office and we were chatting. They bought their first home in Guelph in 1993 and they paid $26,000 for that home.
wow.
Uh, And according to him, he was so scared because he paid $1,500 extra on that time for that home. And he wanted to, his whole family, everyone wanted him to wait till till he had more down payment and more savings to get into the home, but he got into it. And it took him 7 years, 8 years to pay it off. It was paid off in early 2000. And since then, he's been just building real estate wealth. Uh, and this client has quite a lot of real estate properties. So again, yes, is it scary? Absolutely it is, but there is no indication that the interest rates will go down and the property values will go down. Take a look into construction cost, it's going through the roof. Material cost going through the roof.
Yeah,
Um, as soon as the interest rate fall, the housing is gonna go back up. It's just because we are not building enough, despite of whatever the government is telling us. There is just most of the builders, they're just sitting on their lots because it's not profitable for them to build right now. Till
yeah,
the second the interest rate goes down, they will start building, but they will charge a lot more money for it.
yeah. Now, the next question is related to, what you were just talking about pre-construction. How will the pre-construction market behave according to your opinion in the next year or so?
Honestly, if I would have known, I would be sitting somewhere in Mexico and having a really, really good time. But what we can predict is what's going to happen. The new build market is a lot more unpredictable compared to resale
Yeah,
market. But here
yeah,
is my formula of buying new build. If you can get the new build at the same price what the current market prices are, and you
yeah,
have the full ability to close that home, and you are not going into there as a spectator or as a hedge,
yeah,
then please go for it. problem comes is a lot of people hedge on it thinking that, oh, my house will go up by $300,000 by the time this home is built. So it justifies me paying $200,000 extra for that home.
Yeah.
And that is a trap you don't want to get into. So we get a lot of pre-approvals for the new built homes. And if you can find a home at a reasonable price, six, seven, $800,000, by all means, go for it. But please don't fall for a home which is like 1.5, 1.6, or I don't know, $2 million. Doesn't make any sense. Same thing with condos. If you are going for a new build condo, make sure the builder is selling at a reasonable price. And make sure, I don't know how many times I have said that in the past, but I see examples of it again and again. I had a client close this week in Air, and he went to just build it himself, bought the property. His development charges, levy charges were $40,000 on the day of closing. And trust me, that client cried because he didn't save
Yeah.
that $40,000. So if you're buying a new build, make sure you hire a good real estate agent who has experience with that. Make sure you get your lawyer to review the agreement before you sign on the dotted line. Um, because once you buy it, you don't have much protection.
Yeah. Farhan, do you mind making me a host so that I can share a graph that I just, because we've been talking about, prices fluctuating over time. And I just
Mhm.
wanted to show this one graph that I think will bring perspective, especially for those data geeks like myself.
Absolutely. So you're a host now, Jocelyn.
Okay, let me show you something. This is a graph that when we're talking about prices going up and down, I like to show. And this is just, showing all of Ontario over time. And you were just talking about how this one guy bought a property in the 90s for, 25K, you said, I think, right?
Yeah,
And he
20.
paid, yeah,
Mm.
he paid 1,500 more than he should have. And that got me thinking about how like the market fluctuates, up and down, up and down. This is 2017, right? No, 2020. This is 2017 right here. You remember in 2017 how some people were complaining that, oh, they overpaid for their homes, they paid so much. But look, if we look back right now, their property is worth twice as much, right? Especially if you see. So things have fluctuated over time. And as you see here, this is the high, it is 2022. This is when prices were crazy, everything was flying off the shelf. These people who bought here right now, yes, they've lost some equity in their home. They're in the negative right now. But one thing I want to show you is like the way we're going up and down. See here, at the bottom, when prices had gone down the most, this was April of last year. No, this is December. But in April, we also had a similar situation where prices started to go up because they had paused the rate hikes, right?
Yeah,
They paused the rate
yeah.
hikes, prices started going up, right? This is April, this is May, things were good. And then they started increasing rates again and prices went down. Now that they're starting to talk about potentially pausing rates or potentially lowering rates, we're seeing the trend go upwards. So it's just to show the relationship between rates and what the Bank of Canada is doing with prices. As soon as that rate drop comes, expect prices to go up because this is what we've seen over time. Another example too is like in April of 2020. Where is April? This is April of 2020 when everything was shutting down and then they lowered rates. The moment
Mhm.
they lowered rates, everything started going back up again, right? So this is just to show people who love data and to show that what we're saying is not just because we're saying it because there's data to back it up, right? And sorry, I think you want to say something. I'll say my last point and then I'll let you take over. One last thing is there's people who like to say, I'll buy it when the market is at the bottom. How will you ever know that it's at the bottom, right? Because looking at what we've had right now, I think we're trending upwards. You only know it's the bottom when you look backwards, right? Like people who bought here, they didn't know that this was the bottom until it started going up again. From what I've seen and from what the data looks like, as soon as rates go up, we're going back up. So if anybody's waiting for a bottom, this is it.
Listen, you're absolutely right. And I'm just taking a look into it, and my mind is going back to the days when I started buying in 2010, 2011. And every
Mm-hmm.
home we bought on that time was,
Wow.
250, 260.
Yeah,
That's what the price is. But if you also take a look into a 5-year period, you can take any 5-year
yeah,
period, and like in every 5-year period, by the time fifth year hits,
yeah.
the prices have recovered.
See, look, this is 5 years ago, 2019,
Mm.
right? The
Yeah,
average price in Ontario was
4-6.
416, and
Yeah.
now we're approaching 675. And this is all of Ontario. We're including Northern Ontario that barely moves. If you look at
Mm.
Southern Ontario only, the numbers are even, struggling, right? Like it's incredible what the market is doing. And to look at data and to know that this is not just talk, it's what's happening in our market.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing and then we'll continue with questions. I hope that was helpful.
No, it definitely
Um,
was helpful for me looking at that data.
Alrighty, question number 5. Bank of Canada held the mortgage rate. Do you feel the second half of 2024 will see a fall in mortgage rates, or is it going to pause for a while?
Okay, so depending on how the report which came in yesterday for inflation, we do expect a fall in the rate. Now, it might not happen in April, it might not happen in May, but in summer of 2024, we do expect a drop in the rate, and then one further drop before the end of the year. So prime rate is expected to go down by 50 basis point by the end of this year. Now, again, if the inflation shoots up due to carbon tax coming in on April 1st, things might change a little bit. Uh, but what's expectation at the moment is that we will see 2 drops by the end of this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'll be good. A lot of
It
people
will
are
be good.
waiting for that,
Oh,
banking on
me
that.
too. Me too. I would love to get the interest rate drop so I
Yeah.
can stop fielding those calls every day.
Right?
Mhm.
Question number 6. I was looking to buy my first investment property to generate positive cash flow. I have 20% down payment for a property around 600,000. Will I be able to secure a semi-detached in Gulf at 600?
I think that's more of a question for you, Jocelyn.
Yes, so I'm gonna say for a semi, yes, for 600 we can, but again, there's a lot of factors. That 600, like there's a lot of factors to consider, condition of the property, location, all those things. But if you're looking for an investment property at 600, we could definitely get you something. My goal when I'm working with clients is to do my very best to get you an incredible deal. So if I find that, let's say the average price is around 8 or 9 or something, our job is to get something below market, because as investors, from this question sounds like they're an investor, you make money when you buy. So one thing that we can definitely assure you is that you'll not overpay, because we'll look at the comparables, we'll look at the data, we'll make sure that you're getting a property under market value. And yes, you can get a good investment property at 600. Some people like new properties in the 600 range. It's not going to be new, but it's definitely going to be something good that you can rent out and make money long term. Question number 7. Is it still advisable to invest in an area that is far from GTA with the price, with the way, I guess I'm just gonna rephrase it because I need to connect some dots. But the question is talking about, is it still advisable to invest away from the GTA with the way the market has been? What is the most upcoming area outside GTA according to you?
So funny enough, I have made most amount of my money being away from GTA. GTA is a market where a lot of investors play, and I don't
Yeah.
want to compete with them. I compete in generally smaller markets, and there is a lot more opportunity in those compared to bigger markets. And again, if you were to take a look into the markets of London, Ontario, Woodstock, Ontario, Windsor, Ontario, they're far from GTA. But if
Mm.
you were to take a look into last 10 years, they have outperformed GTA significantly because the price points were so much better.
Mhm.
So this is a more of a complicated question, but simple answer to it is Yes, you can definitely find properties away from GTA and make a lot of money with them. It just has to be the right property and right investment and right location. So if you are looking at those, again, please reach out to a realtor who does know those areas very well, what's happening. Um, Location matters so much. It doesn't a lot of time matters which town you are in, but it depends on which part of town you are in. Because you
Yeah.
could be northern London and that area is far more expensive than parts of Kitchener, even though Kitchener is so much closer to Toronto. So you have to reach out to realtor, do your own research before you invest, um, and make sure you go into those places where you could get best buck for your dollar, and
Mhm.
you could find good tenants. Um, and Jocelyn, what's your opinion? Because you have properties both places. What's your opinion on it? You have some properties close to GTA, some further. What you have seen over time?
So I think that for sure, one thing I would mention is I've noticed that if there's a time to buy a property from away from GTA, I think it's now. Because since prices have come down, those areas that are further away from the GTA fell, like the market corrected the most, I guess you could say that. You know, if we look at London compared to Kitchener, prices like right now you can get an incredible deal for 500 in London. That was not the case at the height of the market, right? In fact, we know
Absolutely
some
not. Yeah.
right? So it's just like if you're gonna buy a property in London or in these markets that investors were talking about at the height of the market, then the time has to be now. But I find a lot of the times people we like to do what other people are doing. So that time when everybody was talking about London, people went and bought there and now nobody's talking about those areas and nobody's buying there. So people are moving with the curve instead of, zigzagging or going against the what everybody else is doing. So I think that that's probably one thing I would say. Another thing is GTA is very expensive. Like I don't know a lot of people who are playing at a smaller scale and winning in GTA because if you're gonna buy like let's say for a detached home with an apartment, you're probably looking at like, maybe a 1.5 million, right? With your mortgage payments and like how are you gonna cash flow? And one thing I've noticed if we're looking at Toronto, in most cases, these areas around Toronto, our rents are high enough to support buying a property in this area with our price points. But when you compare rents in Toronto, sometimes it's hard to justify that extra couple 100,000 that you're paying for a property in Toronto. But I would say do your due diligence, learn more about the different markets. And as Farhan has said, be aware of where you're buying because you might end up paying more for a property in an area that's farther when you could have gotten something much closer. For me, if I was to say like my favorite area is probably like in that radius of like an hour or an hour and a half away from Toronto. That radius around. But I know you've done some incredible things further away from here, and you've done incredibly well. So I'm not saying that, you couldn't do that. I'm just saying that learn about your market, run your numbers, build a strategy around your investment, and you'll do well, right?
You're absolutely right. And to answer the final part of the question, where I'm seeing the most amount of opportunity personally
Yeah,
is along 401, further away from go off Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, so
yeah,
towns like Woodstock, towns like London,
yeah,
Ontario.
yeah,
There is definitely incredible opportunities, not only on the west side, but also on the east side. If you were to go Oshawa or further away, like Bowmanville and so on, there's a lot
yeah,
of incredible opportunities there at the moment,
yeah,
where you can definitely make a lot more money. We are
yeah.
getting to the end of the webinar, Jocelyn. Any final
Yes.
thoughts?
Final thoughts. That's a good that's a good point actually, because I see that we only have 4 minutes left. But for me, final thoughts is for somebody who's here and they're looking to, buy their first home, I would say definitely look into your situation and be motivated to do this. Because I feel like if you're not wanting to do this, you won't be able to, right? Because there's a lot of reasons around you why you shouldn't. You probably listen to some family members and those around you that want to, make sure you do the right thing, protect you. But the truth is, you need to be listening to professionals. And the reason I say this is because there's a time when I was a first-time home buyer, and I appreciate the professionals who came in my life and guided me towards, getting my first home. Because if it wasn't for those professionals, I believed I couldn't do it. I believed it was impossible, it was too expensive. And that was like, at that time, actually, the first property we bought was in the 300s. And I believed it was too expensive, we couldn't do it. I had all kinds of reasons why we couldn't do it, right? And now look how far we've come. So it's like, if really you want to buy a property, you need to connect with professionals who can guide you through the process. I guess that would be my takeaway.
I completely agree. To be very frank with you, when I was buying my first home, my whole family decided to go against me. I was given multiple lectures on not to do it. I was told to buy gold instead and hold it, and wasn't a bad advice, but I was just so sick and tired of sharing rooms with roommates. I was in second year university at that point, that I just wanted to buy a home. And
Yeah.
by far, that was the best investment I made. Um, so again, do listen, as you mentioned, Jocelyn, do listen to professional. But if this is something you want to do, the only way you're really gonna find out is when you jump into it, take advice, get into it. And if it doesn't work out, you could always sell it and walk away from it. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that option is always available.
Yeah.
But that negativism, which we find a lot, that young people can't get into homes, it's just impossible to buy a home. Uh, Doing this job for over 10 years, what I have learned is that's not true at all. If you
Yeah.
find, if you have the will, you will find a way to get into home ownership. But if you just want to sit on your parents in your parents' basement and complain all day that you cannot buy a home, then you're right, you can buy a home. So it's all the perspective what it comes down to.
Absolutely. I will just close by saying there's a lot of questions that we didn't get to, but what I'll do is I'll call people one-on-one and I'll try to answer those questions. I know here some people have asked for Farhan's contact information. So what I'll do is we'll send an email with your information, I guess, to all the attendees, and people can reach out and connect with you.
Thank you so
Other than
much.
that, we're right on time. If you want to say something for the final minute, you can take it, and then we'll close this.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jocelyn. It's always pleasure, speaking with you. And thank you for sharing that chart. I had a lot of learning from it, especially seeing over the years how property has performed.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for being here too. This has been a good conversation, and I honestly hope that people here have learned something that will help them achieve their goals. If you still have questions, feel free to connect with both of us. Otherwise, have a great evening, and hopefully, what you learned today will help you win in life and achieve your goals in real estate. Thank you again for being here, and have a great evening. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye, everyone.